If you expected spaced repetition and active recall, then you are in the wrong video. Most people on YouTube tell you these random tricks, for example, Sherlock Holmes remembering palace or some shit like that. But nobody actually tells you how to get interested in the topic that you are studying, how to actually study the things that you don't like, how to actually get marks, or how to actually get interested in a topic that you don't feel like studying, that you don't want to study. Everyone is just throwing around these hacks, petty tricks to just make the normal system more complicated. Do you think the actual toppers use a 10-step process in order to understand a single concept? They don't. They just understand the concept, do some questions, and they are good to go with it. And then revise it after some times. Nobody uses the 10-step frameworks that these people are providing for just a single topic. So, what I will give you today is much more fundamental than any of that bullshit. And that is going to be the one thing that changes your academic journey from 0 to 100 out of all the things that you have ever tried and you will try in the future. So, my name is Ankush and I teach people how to actually focus in this world surrounded by a million distractions. And the tip I want to give you today is just a single word. It is curiosity. If you're not curious about a topic, then it does not matter whether the best teacher in the world or the best education platform in the world or the best schooling system in the world is behind you. You are going to fail in that subject because you're not having that inherent curiosity of that subject. Maybe at the end of the day, you can pass somehow by cheating or by doing something or at least memorizing some formulae or some stuff that is there in the books. But you will not truly understand the subject unless and until you are curious about the subject. And curiosity is in various forms. For example, just being curious does not mean being a nerd all the times. It means sometimes observing the actual nature, the actual environment, and actually seeing how the subject is taking effect. For example, let's take a random subject. Aside from the prominent subjects like physics, chemistry, maths, let's take a subject which is not very central or very spotlighted in most of the countries. That is geography. I myself am a PCM student or a STEM student if you are from UK or USA. Then you have got to know that I mainly deal with physics, chemistry, maths. But geography is an interesting subject too because you are literally studying how our earth works, how our earth is divided into these longitudes, in these latitudes, and how it actually spins. How much time is 1 year? Most people think it's 365 days, but somebody who knows geography, he or she says 365.25 days. That's why we have the leap year. And if you are more curious about geography, then you probably have found out that it is not actually 365.25 days. It is actually 365.24190 or something like that days. Apart from the rotation and revolution of Earth, there are other factors. For example, the geography students, they can understand the soil composition and they think like, all right, this soil probably formed during this era or these layers of fossils were the result of this era of formation or for example meteorite clashes or for example volcano eruptions. They can understand this stuff and actually become curious that all right, since the color of the soil is a bit reddish, there might be some elements present in it, for example iron or something. I actually don't know the stuff. And similarly with different subjects like history, I know history is one of, if not the most boring subjects to study. But if you are someone who is very curious about the stuff, if you are curious about what happened when you were not born, that means you have got to study history. And studying history does not actually mean memorizing the dates, memorizing when what happened. And that is a part of it, but that is not the whole truth. I was an avid history fan myself, and I used to personally go on the Wikipedia pages and read through the entire shit just because I had some 5 minutes free time because I was drinking tea. I used to read an entire Wikipedia page of random historical events just because I had some free time. That's how interested I was in history. Most people would be playing games in that time, whereas you would be alleviating your skills. And in fact, it is a pleasurable activity to do so. For example, if you get specialization in a subject, you feel like you know so much more compared to the average human being. Average human being does not even know that Alexander the Great came before Cleopatra and Cleopatra was Julius Caesar's wife and like so much other stuff that people actually don't know. And it is very curious for me to understand, for me to seek out that, oh my god, these events happened in this particular order which led to something else. Like history is so well interconnected and we study so much fragmented history that it is actually nonsensical, because once you start looking at the bigger picture of how the world was moving, not just a particular country, not just a particular kingdom, but how the entire world was moving in, let's say, the 17th century, the 16th century, or the 18th century, you will feel like so much of the dots are connecting. And that is why history is such a cool subject, and it is one of the coolest habits that I have seen in anyone. If you are with a history guy, you will be bombarded with random facts, random epic things that you did not know existed or did not know happened. And these are the random facts that the history guy will tell you. And you will become interested in the topic. You will get hooked onto it because it is so curious. Now, definitely, there are some people who will consider all of this very nerdiness, but it does not have to be. Like, if my specialization is a particular subject, let's say physics or let's say chemistry or mathematics or whatever it is, I am freely willing to talk about that subject because I've spent my entire damn life reading about that subject. I want to talk about it. I like talking about it. Who the fuck are you to guide me or to instruct me that, alright, it is very nerdy? Who the hell cares? If you want to get good marks, at first, curiosity is necessary. And now I will explain to you how this curiosity exactly leads to more marks that everyone wants. So, let's say you have been curious about a particular field of science, physics per se. You will be generally inclined to understand or to know more about the topic. You will actually seek out different practical videos. For example, there's a YouTube channel called Slow Mo Guys where they actually slow stuff in slow motion, in like very, very, very slow motion, like one millionth of a frame, that level of slow motion, whereby you can actually learn how stuff happens, how electricity travels. Does it even show any movement? Is it instantaneous? Then if you're interested in chemistry, you know the de Broglie equations, which states humans are waves. How cool is that humans are waves? We are not matter. When we are standing or we are walking, we are waves. It is absolutely crazy to me that some people just do not know this stuff, number one, and number two, do not care about it even if they have to learn it. Because if you're in a class, you do have to understand the topic, but along with that, you also have to give a test on it or have to show a practical on it or whatever the system is in your country. The thing is, most people are on the phase of just memorizing for the test and vomiting it out on the answer sheet, which is absolutely the worst possible way to utilize your energy. I mean, if you're going to spend 3 hours on a day studying, you might as well study in a way that's fun to you, number one, and number two, actually productive rather than being harmful. Because let's be honest, nobody likes rote memorization, nobody likes making 10,000 flashcards that you cannot even organize. What we like is actually trying to know random trivia, random knowledge, and gain an understanding of the world in a way we feel comfortable. It's not like I have to learn it just to get marks. It's more like, since I'm learning it to get marks anyways, I might as well learn it so nicely that it actually makes sense and I actually get the marks. For example, if you have read a poem, nowadays what happens is most people, when they read a poem, they directly go to ChatGPT and just ask the ChatGPT for the summary and all. And what that does is, number one, it deteriorates their brain because they are not using their active thinking skills. And number two, the output isn't even great because it's not that person who has understood the poem and made the summary. It's just a random AI on the internet. So if you are someone who has read the poem and you make your own summary, you will understand the topic deeper. And maybe, perhaps maybe, if you are someone who is very curious, you might actually go and research, when did the poet write the thing? When did the poet write this particular stanza? What was he going through? And how did he feel while writing this poem? It's not just about normal rhetorical stuff. It's about practical things. For example, there is a very, very famous poem of Robert Frost by the name of The Road Not Taken, which is my most favorite out of the 15 years of education that I've got until now. And the poem is basically like, all right, in life you have two choices. Either you go this way, either you go that way. And the origin of this poem is literally the poet and his friend were sitting in a bench and they were deciding which side to go. There were two roads. They were deciding which road to go. And the poet and his friend went through a particular road and did not go through the other road. So that poet, Robert Frost, he wrote a poem called The Road Not Taken, whereby he wrote that, all right, I have taken one path, but I have not taken the other. And since the time has passed, I cannot take the other road now because this opportunity has already gone. So each and every subject has a level of curiosity imbued in it, and you have to find that thread. You have to find the fact about what you are curious about. As I already mentioned, for various subjects, there are definitely curious points for each and every subjects. Some subjects are definitely more rigorous or more boring or more painful than the others, if you can say that. But once you find the curiosity factor, the pain part of the equation will be deleted, because you will not feel like it is a pain to study that chapter. Because even though the study itself might be hard, even though the mathematical equations might be hard, even though the physics equations might be hard, but the underlying mechanics and the underlying emotions that you will feel, for example, all right, even though I do not understand the work energy equations properly, but I understand the concept, I know the things, and I have studied it in detail, you will feel like even though the math is your problem, but with practice that gets better. And what instantly will get better is that you will not feel the difficulty of approaching a subject. You will never feel that, oh my god, how can I approach a subject? How can I go to that subject and actually study that because I don't like that subject? You will not feel that kind of anxiety or anxiousness inside you, because you have already become curious about it and you are happy to learn about the subject. All in all, what happens when you try to brute force your way into a subject is that you get average marks. 60%, 70%, 80%, that's it. But the moment you realize, all right, wait, these chairs are made of atoms. This water bottle is made of atoms. I am made of atoms. And inside that atoms, there is nucleus, there is proton, there is electron. And then there is, like, inside my body, there are biomolecules and so many other things. You will actually feel like, wow, this is actually reality. The subjects are not based on some woo woo nonsense. They are actually based on reality itself. They are the defining characteristics of reality. How crazy is that I can predict the motion of an object just by using three equations of motion? For example, given the variables, I can easily find out where the position of the object is after a certain amount of time with the equation s equal to ut plus half at square. It is very, very sad to me that most people still think that brute forcing their way or memorizing their way into the subjects is the best idea, which it clearly is not. The best idea to understand a subject, to get better in it, is to develop a curiosity. If you don't want to learn guitar, then you will never learn guitar, even if, I don't know, the best guitarist in the world is teaching you. So, you have to develop a curiosity of the subjects at first. Then and only then can you understand the subject more deeply than anyone else surrounding you, and get good marks. And if we are honestly talking about the academic system, even if the marks are not the main concern, you still get to learn things about the entire real world. It's not like education is totally useless nowadays, because there is a new trend of people mocking the education system, of mocking the subjects, of mocking the knowledge that has been taught. Alright, the system might be flawed. Alright, the knowledge, some of them might be outdated. But the thing actually makes sense, because, first of all, you are using a device to write the comment, for example, the cell phone. People who have studied, people who know the stuff, are only the ones making the phone. If you don't know how to make a sentence in English, you cannot use ChatGPT. And if everybody stops knowing the equations of motion, the equations of work power energy, the equations of waves, who do you think is going to be the next scientist who elevates humanity to a different level? Euler, Feynman, and everyone you try to name or think of naming had to study, and they elevated humanity to a different level. So it's not just about getting some marks, because let it be known, Einstein failed in each and every subject except physics and maths, and went on to be the greatest scientist of all time, as people say. Though it's debatable, because personally I think it is Newton, but whatever the case, Einstein's name is more famous than Newton's. The main point being, curiosity in a subject is the only fundamental building block upon which, if you stand, you are guaranteed success. Let it be known, there are no other foundational building blocks on which you can stand which guarantees success except curiosity. If you are not curious, then there is a 50-50 chance, there is a 70-30 chance, there is a 60-40 chance that you will win, you will lose. But once you are curious, there is a 100% chance you will win under each and every scenario. Even if you fail, there is winning in failure too if you are curious, because the comeback just might be the greatest the world has ever seen. And if you want to decrease the distractions in your life and increase your focus at the same time, then you can go and check out the link in the description. It will take you to my focus course, and before I launch it, the price is already halved. It is $25. It will be doubled as soon as I launch it. So go book your place right. And as I always say, start if you haven't already.